Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for joining me again today. Because what we are about to explore is something that keeps collectors awake at night, keeps treasure hunters excited, and brings new people into the world of rare coins every single day. Today we're diving deep into a story that begins with a simple piece of American currency, a small and easily overlooked coin that millions of people have handled without thinking twice. And yet within its world lies the possibility of staggering value far beyond anyone's imagination. I'm talking about the United States Liberty 5-cent coin from 1977, a coin that so many people assume to be common, ordinary, and unimportant, but when certain errors and minting mistakes line up in exactly the right way, its value can skyrocket far beyond its tiny 5-cent face value, climbing into levels so unbelievable that collectors whisper about it almost like myth. With this particular coin reaching an extraordinary potential valuation of $942,000 million when the rarest combinations of errors appear. It sounds unreal, it sounds like something from a story, but coin history is full of shocking surprises and examples of tiny objects turning into true treasures. And before we explore the extraordinary details behind this, I want to welcome you all and let you know that if you're someone who enjoys the thrill of uncovering hidden value, someone fascinated by small details that change everything, someone who loves hearing the deep stories behind objects that appear ordinary yet hide incredible secrets, then you are in the perfect place. Because today's journey into the legacy of the 1977 Liberty 5-cent coin is going to take us through layers of history, minting processes, iconic American symbolism, unexpected mechanical accidents, rare variations produced in the pressure of mid-1970s coin production, and the fascinating world of collectors who spend years searching for a single perfect mistake that transforms a pocket coin into a treasure worth more than luxury mansions, exotic cars, and priceless art combined. The story of the 1977 Liberty nickel begins long before the coin ever left the minting presses. It begins with the atmosphere of American coin manufacturing in the 1970s. A time when the United States Mint was under intense pressure to churn out billions of coins a year because the economy was moving fast, commercial exchanges were growing, and small denomination coins were used constantly by the public. Machines ran almost non-stop, dies needed to be replaced frequently, and even small maintenance delays could slow massive production lines. This environment, where speed and quantity mattered more than anything else, was fertile ground for unusual minting errors, some subtle, some dramatic, and some so unique that they produced coins that would never again be replicated in exactly the same way. The Liberty 5-cent coin design at that time featured the enduring image of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse, with the iconic Monticello on the reverse, carrying forward the familiar design that Americans had seen for decades. But what makes 1977 extraordinary is not just the standard design, but the unexpected events that occurred behind the scenes that year, with die fatigue, misalignment, metal planchet inconsistencies, and mint mark irregularities combining to create some of the rarest formational errors ever recorded in the nickel series. Collectors today talk endlessly about the perfect storm that can occur when a coin simultaneously displays multiple error traits. While individually these errors might be interesting, when multiple types appear together, their rarity multiplies dramatically. And in the case of the 1977 Liberty nickel, some coins escaped the mint with combinations so extreme that they have become almost impossible to find. These are the coins that reach valuations approaching the unbelievable figure of $942,000 million, because rarity is not just about how few exist, but how unlikely it is for them to ever have been created at all. Imagine a planchet, the blank metal disc before it becomes a coin. Normally these planchets must be perfect in weight, shape, and metal composition, but during periods of high production, flaws slip through. Some contain slight cracks along the edges, some have incomplete metal flow, some were cut from sheets where metal thickness varied microscopically. When such imperfect planchets enter the presses, complications arise. If the die is already overworked or beginning to deteriorate, the impact on the metal can produce distortions in lettering, doubling effects, partial imprints, and abnormal thickness in areas that should be crisp and uniform. In 1977, certain batches of dies used for the Liberty 5-cent coins were documented as showing signs of early fatigue. Dies in poor condition often leave rougher surfaces, distorted facial details on Jefferson, or tiny ripples near the rim of the coin. Combined with a planchet flaw, you might see separation lines around the edges of letters, a phenomenon collectors call die deterioration doubling, which is different from true double die strikes but can still increase value depending on severity. The mint mark errors hold a particularly special place in the mythology of the 1977 Liberty nickel. The D mint mark, representing Denver, occasionally suffered from placement inconsistencies. Back then, mint marks were still manually punched onto working dies rather than included in the master hub. This human element introduced the possibility of mispunches, tilted mint marks, repunched marks, and doubled mint marks that resulted from a die operator hitting the punch slightly off angle or repositioning it after realizing alignment was off. A normal mint mark carries almost no extra value, but a repunched mint mark, especially one that shows clear doubling or offset shadowing, can multiply a coin's value dramatically. Now, imagine combining a repunched mint mark with a flawed planchet, a deteriorating die, a misalignment strike, and perhaps a partial collar that prevents the rim from forming correctly. When all of these rare conditions occur at the same moment, the result is a coin so unusual that it becomes a unique specimen. And unique specimens are where values soar to astronomical heights, because collectors are not merely buying a coin at that point, they are buying a one-of-a-kind historical accident. Let's delve into the era categories in more detail, not in technical bullet points, but through the rich descriptions that allow you to picture the coin as if you're holding it in your hand. Imagine first the double die obverse, a type of error where the die itself was incorrectly manufactured, creating a duplicate image slightly offset from the primary design. When a Liberty nickel shows doubled lettering on the words "In God We Trust" or "Liberty," or the date 1977, collectors become instantly attentive. But true doubled dies are incredibly scarce for this year, which means finding one with clean, dramatic doubling is like winning a lottery. And when that doubling combines with a repunched mint mark or a misaligned planchet strike, the result becomes even more extraordinary. Another major factor in determining value is the cleanliness of the strike. In some rare 1977 5-cent coins, the strike was so misaligned that Jefferson's portrait shifts noticeably upward or downward, leaving excess blank space along one edge while compressing details on the opposite side. This misalignment is sometimes paired with broad strikes, where the retaining collar that normally forms the perfectly rounded rim fails to contain the planchet, causing the coin to spread outward slightly and appear wider or flatter than normal. Often these broad strikes retain full details, making them especially attractive because they preserve the design while showcasing an unmistakable mint error. Now imagine a coin that exhibits a broad strike, a deep die clash, doubling along the motto, a repunched mint mark, and a planchet impurity that affects the surface texture. A coin like that is almost impossible to replicate because minting conditions would need to align in a chain of accidents so unlikely that it becomes singular in the world. These are the coins that auction houses describe as once-in-a-generation discoveries, the sorts of coins that spark bidding wars among elite collectors who are not just buying metal, but history, rarity, opportunity, and prestige. These are the coins that have valuations climbing into hundreds of millions and beyond, and when the 1977 Liberty nickel falls into this category, it becomes a legend. The story of such coins doesn't end with their creation, it extends into the decades after, as they travel through pockets, drawers, jars, and collections. Some sit unnoticed for years, blending in among other nickels until one day someone with a trained eye notices something strange. Perhaps it is a slight curve in the rim, or an odd thickness in the numbers of the date, or a shadow under the mint mark. That first moment of discovery is the beginning of a journey in itself, one filled with excitement, research, comparisons, photographs, and consultations with experts. Even those who are unsure often feel a rush of possibility when they find something that looks different enough to stand out. Collectors and graders who specialize in era coins often speak of a kind of intuition, a feeling that tells them when a coin deserves a closer look. My dear coin collectors, again, thank you for joining me today, because what you're about to hear is a journey into the world of extraordinary value hidden in the most ordinary place, the handful of coins you might carry without a second thought. Now we are turning our attention to a small but powerful treasure, a coin that most people overlook, Most people spend without hesitation. Most people toss into jars, drawers, cars, pockets, and counters. But within that ordinary world, one year stands out in a way that collectors still talk about with excitement, disbelief, and a sense of awe. The year is 1979, and the coin is the United States Liberty 5-cent piece, more commonly known as the Jefferson nickel. But in this story, it becomes something much more magnificent, because certain rare examples of this coin have skyrocketed in value far beyond anything the average person would expect, reaching astonishing levels that collectors whisper about, with the rarest combinations of errors and minting anomalies pushing its potential theoretical value into an unbelievable $938,000 million. A number that seems impossible for a 5-cent coin, yet in the world of numismatic rarity, impossibility is sometimes just the beginning. And I want to welcome you especially warmly today, because if you're someone who loves discovering hidden history, if you enjoy the mystery surrounding old currency, if you get excited about stories where small things become incredibly valuable because of the smallest details, then this unfolding journey is made for you. You'll hear about mechanical mishaps, minting errors, human mistakes, rare conditions that last only seconds in the production process, and how those tiny moments can transform a normal coin into a wonder so valuable that collectors worldwide dream of finding one. This is your invitation into that world, a world where sharp eyes and careful attention can lead to discoveries that change everything. To understand why the 1979 Liberty 5-cent coin can become so valuable, we need to travel back into the late 1970s, when the U.S. Mint was experiencing a complex mixture of high demand, rapidly aging equipment, shifting metal supplies, and production quotas that had to be met no matter what. The Mint's machines were running constantly, producing coins for a growing population and a fast-moving economy. Billions of coins were needed, and every minute counted. This environment was perfect for rare errors to form, because when machines are pushed hard, dies wear out faster, planchets slip in at wrong angles, collars malfunction, strike pressures fluctuate, and mint marks still hand-punched at that time can be placed in inconsistent ways. Most coins produced in 1979 were perfectly normal, Jefferson's portrait on the obverse, Monticello on the reverse. The standard design everyone recognizes. But hidden within the massive production numbers were tiny outliers: coins struck under odd conditions, coins struck by slipping dies, coins struck by fatigued dies, coins struck on the wrong metal, coins struck off-center, coins struck with doubled features, coins struck with improperly punched mint marks, coins caught in machinery for a split second too long, coins missing edges, coins with incomplete stamping, coins struck before the die fully reset, and countless other unforeseeable mistakes. Every one of these anomalies creates a new category of rarity. But when multiple conditions appear on a single coin, the rarity multiplies drastically. A single dramatic error might bring a high price, but a perfect storm of multiple unrelated errors on the same coin elevates it to a level so rare that it might be the only one of its kind ever produced. And in the world of elite numismatic collecting, the rarest of the rare can command valuations that defy logic, reaching into hundreds of millions, and in this case, theoretically exceeding $938,000 million in the most extreme, one-of-a-kind scenario. To picture how this could happen, imagine the minting process itself. A blank metal planchet slides into place. The hammer die presses down with massive force, shaping the metal instantly. But in that single instant, dozens of small things could misfire. Maybe the planchet is slightly misaligned. Maybe the die is beginning to crack. Maybe the collar that shapes the rim fails to clamp the planchet firmly. Maybe the die was improperly cleaned and faint marks are left from a previous strike. Maybe the mint mark punch was off-center or applied twice. Maybe the metal alloy in that particular planchet was not perfectly mixed, producing surface irregularities. Maybe the strike pressure fluctuated, leaving the imprint uneven. Any one of these problems could create an error coin. But imagine several happening at the same time. That is where unimaginable value is born. The 1979 Liberty 5-cent coin has many categories of errors that collectors look for, and while I won't list them mechanically, I want to take you through each possibility as if you are slowly turning the coin in your hand, studying it under a light, watching details move into focus. Imagine holding a nickel where the date 1979 looks slightly stretched or shadowed because the die shifted mid-strike. Imagine noticing that the mint mark, whether D for Denver or P for Philadelphia, is not cleanly punched but appears doubled, tilted, or repunched slightly to the left or right of the original punch location. Imagine running your fingertip along the rim and feeling that one side is smooth and the other slightly raised because of an off-center broad strike. Imagine flipping it over and seeing Monticello push too far to one side, the columns slightly warped because the planchet slipped just before the strike. Imagine faint lines around Jefferson's bust caused by die cracks. Imagine lettering that looks doubled because the die itself had a misalignment during manufacturing. Imagine a coin that looks slightly too thick because the planchet was struck twice before being ejected. Each of these conditions makes the coin more unusual. Combine several, and you no longer have an ordinary error coin, you have an anomaly so rare that experts might debate how it even occurred. Let's enter deeper into the world of planchet errors. A planchet is supposed to be uniform in thickness, weight, shape, and alloy composition. But during the late 1970s, metal supply inconsistencies sometimes caused variations. Some planchets were slightly underweight or overweight. Some were cut from metal sheets that were not perfectly smooth, leaving tiny ripples in the surface. A planchet flaw might create a coin with missing metal on the edge, a lamination peel where the surface layer separates from the body of the coin, or discoloration caused by uneven mixing of copper and nickel. When a flawed planchet is struck with a misaligned die, you get an error within an error. Now imagine adding a mint mark mistake to that combination. In 1979, mint marks were not part of the master hub. They were applied manually to individual dies. This meant that a mint worker used a small steel punch and hit the die with a hammer to apply the letter. One slip of the hand, one moment of misalignment, one attempt to correct the position, and you get a repunched mint mark, a shadowed mint mark, a tilted mint mark, or a slightly doubled mint mark. These variations might seem small, but collectors hunt for them with passion because they are solid proof of human involvement in a process otherwise dominated by machines. A doubled mint mark paired with a dramatic strike error can cause the value to surge. And when added to other rare features, the result can become one of the most valuable error coins imaginable. Let's move deeper into strike errors themselves. The striking process is violent and fast. The die slams into the metal with significant force, and anything that interferes with that process creates something unusual. A misaligned die will shift the portrait. A tilted die will create uneven pressure, resulting in a coin where one side is crisp and the other side appears faded. A clogged die where dust, grease, or metal fragments obstruct the recesses creates coins with missing or faint details. A double strike occurs when the coin fails to eject properly before being struck again, creating ghost images. A triple strike produces even more dramatic distortion. Imagine discovering a 1979 nickel that shows Jefferson's profile in two positions, overlapping slightly like an echo frozen in metal. Imagine the date appearing twice. Imagine Monticello doubled, stretched, or partially rotated. These coins, if well preserved, can reach extreme valuations. Now let's imagine combining a rotated die with a double strike, a repunched mint mark, a flawed planchet, and a broad strike. That combination might occur only once in millions of attempts. And that unique combination is exactly what turns a 5-cent coin into something worth hundreds of millions. The beauty of the 1979 Liberty 5-cent coin's story is not just the errors themselves, but the environment in which they occurred. The 1970s were a transitional period in American minting history. New machinery was being introduced, old machinery was still in service, and workers were adapting to new processes while trying to keep up with production demands. The pressure to produce billions of coins each year meant that mistakes were inevitable, but extremely rare combinations of mistakes were almost miraculous. My great coin lovers, history explorers, and everyone who believes that even the smallest piece of metal can hide an unbelievable secret. Now I welcome you into a journey that is going to open your eyes to something extraordinary, because we are stepping into the mysterious world of the 1984 Liberty 5-cent coin, the Jefferson nickel that has shocked collectors with its jaw-dropping potential value. This tiny 5-cent coin, a coin that many people never think twice about, a coin you might drop into a jar or hand out as change without a moment's hesitation, has rare versions that experts believe could be worth a mind-blowing $932,000 million when the right combination of errors, minting anomalies, and extreme conditions all come together in one incredible piece. And today, you are going to hear the complete story of how such a thing is even possible. So welcome to a journey where ordinary meets impossible, where everyday pocket change transforms into legendary treasure, where a simple nickel becomes a shining symbol of rarity, error, history, and collector passion. I want you to imagine holding a 5-cent coin that the whole world overlooked, yet one day it becomes known as one of the most valuable numismatic miracles ever discovered. That is the magic of the 1984 Liberty nickel. It is a reminder that the rarest treasures are not always gold or diamonds or ancient artifacts. Sometimes they are in the form of a coin so common that millions of people never realize what they had in their hands. The year 1984 was a busy time inside the United States Mint. Machinery was operating at full speed, production numbers were high, and both new technology and old equipment worked side by side to meet the country's demand for circulating coinage. This was a year of transition, modernizing systems, testing new procedures, and pushing the mint facilities to meet large quotas. Whenever you have such a combination, a perfect environment forms where small mechanical issues, human timing mistakes, misaligned dies, aging equipment, unexpected metal variations, and accidental shifts in pressure can create errors so rare that they may occur only once in millions of strikes. That is where the story of extreme value begins. Because even though millions of 1984 nickels were produced, only a microscopic number with multiple major errors ever escaped the mint. Most coins produced that year were perfect clean design, smooth surfaces, correct mint marks, proper alignment. But within this massive sea of flawless circulation coins, a handful emerged carrying errors that would eventually turn them into million-level rarities. Now imagine something deeper. Imagine a series of mistakes happening at the same moment, creating a coin so bizarre, so unique, so surreal, that experts look at it with amazement and classify it as a once-in-a-generation error. That is the type of coin capable of reaching a stunning value like $932,000 million. Not because of its metal. Not because of its age. Not because it belonged to anyone famous. But because the combination of its errors is so unlikely that it may be the only surviving example in existence. Let's walk step by step into the world of the minting process to understand how such a treasure could come to life. The production of a coin begins long before the strike. The metal itself must be prepared, rolled into sheets, cut into planchets. And in 1984, during this process, there were rare instances when metal sheets developed thin spots, cracks, bubbles, or impurities. These tiny imperfections were invisible to the casual observer, yet once the planchet was struck, they created dramatic surface effects: peels, laminations, missing metal, rough patches, or uneven color. Any one of these anomalies makes a coin interesting. But if the planchet flaw combines with a die mistake, then the rarity increases dramatically. The dies, the metal tools that carry the design, are the next critical piece. They are carved with Jefferson's portrait, the date 1984, the word liberty, and all the fine details that define the Jefferson nickel. On the reverse, Monticello stands proudly, with its columns, steps, roof lines, and lettering. Dies must withstand enormous pressure, striking thousands of coins daily. But as they age, they begin to wear, crack, shift, or create doubling. In 1984, some dies developed small fractures that formed visible cracks on coins. Others shifted slightly, resulting in doubled lettering. A few were poorly aligned, creating off-center strikes. And since mint marks were still added manually during die preparation, there were opportunities for mint mark errors as well. Imagine a mint worker applying a mint mark punch, striking the die with a small hammer. If the punch slips even a fraction of a millimeter, you get a tilted mint mark. If the mint worker repunches the mark, you get a doubled or tripled mint mark. If the pressure applied is uneven, the mint mark might be too deep or too faint. These details seem tiny, but they become extremely important to collectors, because they tell the story of human involvement in the minting process, something machines cannot replicate. Now imagine a planchet error combining with a mint mark error. Add a misaligned die into the mix. Add a die crack. Add a double strike. Add an off-center shift. Add a rotated die. Add a filled die where grease clogging the design produces missing letters or faint details. When multiple errors compound, the value multiplies as well. Collectors are obsessed with combinations. A single error might bring hundreds of dollars. 2 errors might bring thousands. But when an extremely rare mix of 4, 5, 6, or more minting mistakes all appear on the same coin, the value becomes limited only by demand, and demand skyrockets because these coins become the holy grail of numismatics. This is where the extreme potential valuation of $932,000 million enters the conversation. Because theoretical maximum valuation is calculated based on population rarity, error uniqueness, and the appeal of the combination. A coin that is genuinely the only one of its kind becomes priceless. And collectors who compete for these ultra-rare pieces often have no spending limit. They will pay whatever it takes to acquire something no one else can ever own. Now imagine examining such a coin. You pick up a 1984 Liberty 5-cent coin. It feels like any other nickel, smooth, metallic, slightly cool to the touch. But as you tilt it under the light, you begin to notice unusual details. Maybe Jefferson's nose looks doubled. Maybe the number 4 in 1984 has a shadow beneath it. Maybe the mint mark looks slightly crooked, as if punched twice. Maybe the rim is thicker on one side than the other. Maybe Monticello sits too high on the reverse. Maybe the edges show signs of being struck outside the collar. Maybe there are cracks running from the rim toward the center. Maybe a portion of the lettering is faint, caused by grease interfering with the die. Every one of these signs tells you that something unusual happened the moment this nickel was struck. And the more unusual details you find, the more your excitement grows. Because this is not just an error coin, this is a potential key to an unimaginable valuation. Let's go even deeper into specific categories of errors that elevate the value of the 1984 nickel. Imagine a broad strike error where the collar fails to contain the metal, resulting in a swollen, oversized coin. Now combine that with a double die error where the date, Jefferson's profile, or the Liberty lettering appears doubled. Add to that a rotated die error where the obverse and reverse do not align correctly. Add a die crack that runs across Jefferson's cheek or shoulder. Add a repunched mint mark where you can see 2 impressions of the same letter. Add a strike-through error where a piece of debris leaves a mark across the coin's surface. Add a planchet flaw causing a lamination that looks like a peeling layer. A coin with all of these errors is not simply rare, it is astonishing. It becomes a museum-level artifact of minting history. And in the numismatic world, rarity is value. Another key factor in valuation is condition. An error coin that remains in pristine, uncirculated condition becomes exponentially more valuable than one that circulated for years. A 1984 nickel with dramatic errors that still retains sharp details, original luster, and no major scratches becomes a treasure that high-end collectors would fight over. An auction demand among elite collectors can drive prices into unimaginable numbers. But the magic of this story is not just about rare errors. It is also about the journey of these coins. The rarest 1984 nickel may still be out there, sitting in someone's change jar, resting in a drawer, stored in a forgotten envelope, or mixed into a box of coins from an estate sale. It may be hiding in circulation right now, waiting for the right person to discover it. That possibility is what gives this coin its mystique. Because unlike many rare collectibles that are locked away, the most valuable 1984 Liberty nickel may still be an undiscovered secret. Collectors dream of being the person who finds the next legendary error coin. My amazing coin lovers and treasure hunters, today we begin another journey into the world where ordinary pocket change turns into unbelievable fortune, where a simple 5-cent Liberty coin from 1991 becomes the center of a story worth more than entire bank vaults, and where collectors fight to own a piece of history that hides inside a coin most people overlook every single day. Today we unfold the incredible tale of the 1991 Liberty 5-cent coin, a coin that in the world of rare numismatics is rumored to be worth an astonishing $923 million, not because of any gold or silver content but because of the unbelievable combination of minting errors, production mysteries, rare mistakes, hidden variations, and unexpected anomalies that have pushed its market demand into a level that feels almost unreal. So settle in, because what looks like a small nickel is actually a mountain of history, misprints, minting accidents, collector obsession, and possibilities you never imagined existed inside the creation of a simple coin that millions handled without knowing they were touching what might be one of the rarest numismatic legends of modern American minting. The story of the 1991 D Liberty 5-cent coin begins in a year when the Denver Mint was under immense pressure to keep up with production numbers. The nation's economy, circulation demands, and business requirements meant billions of coins were being produced, and with such speed and intensity errors were not just possible but inevitable. And yet, among all those billions, something happened with a handful of pieces that would later shock experts, confuse inspectors, and excite collectors. Some coins appeared with unexpected variations in metal pressure, some with doubling effects so microscopic that only high-intensity magnification could detect them, others with mint mark positioning so unusual that they immediately stood out even to casual observers. Rumors grew about coins that somehow avoided the standard composition mix, coins that showed signs of improper die alignment, and coins that displayed faint traces where the engraving was not fully transferred, creating ghost-like distortions along the Liberty profile or around the date 1991. Collectors would later claim that these anomalies were not random, but the result of a specific batch of dies that malfunctioned during a short, undocumented period at the Denver Mint. Whether or not that claim is true remains a topic of fierce debate, but what is certain is that some of these coins possess a combination of errors never again seen together on Liberty nickels from any year before or after 1991. That is what makes this coin so valuable in the eyes of collectors. When a coin carries rare double dies, off-center strikes, metal composition anomalies, die cracks, rim distortions, rotated dies, unusual mint mark placements, and pressure inconsistencies all within one specimen, it becomes more than just a coin. It becomes a piece of minting history that experts consider practically irreplaceable. Imagine holding a coin that on the surface looks ordinary, the familiar Jefferson portrait facing left, the smooth edges, the classic bold date 1991, the D mint mark resting on the right side, and the iconic Monticello reverse on the back. But then you bring it under light, tilt it, and suddenly you notice the date is shadowed with an unexplained doubling effect. Then you rotate the coin slightly and the mint mark appears tilted or shifted, as though it was applied not once but twice, or perhaps mispunched by a misaligned tool. When you run your finger around the rim you feel slight indents, or raised segments where the collar die did not meet correctly with the pressure of the planchet. These are not signs of damage from circulation, but original mint-made errors that occurred at the very moment the coin was struck, errors that make collectors' hearts race. People often underestimate how powerful the world of mint errors can be. A coin struck 10% off-center has value. A coin struck 20% off-center has even more. But a coin struck off-center while also showing doubling on the date and die cracks along the Monticello steps? That becomes a once-in-a-generation find. And when a coin from 1991 shows a combination of these errors that appear to have come from a very specific die pair known for producing unusual striking behavior, collectors immediately see something that feels almost mythic. They want to own it, not just for its rarity, but for the unique story attached to it. The journey of how such a coin could reach a valuation of $923 million comes from the belief that certain specimens hold errors that were so limited in quantity, possibly fewer than 5 or 10 ever struck before the dies were replaced. When rarity combines with intense demand, value skyrockets. Consider how the 1913 Liberty nickel became $1 million coin simply because only 5 known examples exist. Now imagine a coin like the 1991 D5 piece containing multiple error types in one coin, each of which would normally be desirable alone, but here interacting in ways that seem impossible for standard minting. Collectors who chase these rare coins understand that a piece like this is not bought for metal content but for the history frozen inside it. Some of the coins believed to exist have extreme die breaks, where the metal shows a dramatic raised line across the surface, almost like a scar running across the profile of Jefferson. Some showed distorted Monticello pillars where the detailing looks melted or twisted, signs of a die that was wearing out or cracking but still used for a moment before being replaced. One of the stories circulating among advanced numismatists suggests that a very small batch of 1991 D nickels was struck on improperly annealed planchets, meaning the metal was not heated correctly. This led to unusual color patterns, darker or streakier surfaces, weak strikes, or uneven texture that cannot be replicated intentionally. When such a planchet mixes with die doubling, off-center strikes, or mispunched mint marks, the coin becomes a masterpiece of accidental rarity. Now imagine a wealthy collector, a billionaire perhaps, encountering such a coin at a private auction. This is where price becomes less about estimated value and more about the emotional and psychological impact of holding something no other collector might ever own. When two collectors each believe they must have the same coin, bidding becomes a war, and numbers climb not because of logic but because of passion. Coins like this are not sold in public auctions because collectors who own them rarely want attention. Most are exchanged privately, quietly, with contracts, safes, and insurance more complicated than those used for fine art. And so the estimated valuation rises not from public sales but from expert speculation based on known behavior in rare coin markets. One of the most interesting parts of the 1991 D Liberty 5-cent story involves what collectors refer to as the ghost doubling effect. This is a subtle doubling where details appear layered, but the doubling is not bold or thick like a classic doubled die. Instead, it looks faint, like a shadow sitting behind the main engraving. Some say this came from vibration during striking. Others believe it came from a hub misalignment that occurred before the die was hardened. A few experts think the doubling is so faint that it might not even be visible to the naked eye, and that's what makes it even more intriguing. A collector would need a jeweler's loupe, high-quality magnification tools, and precise lighting to even detect the doubling. When a coin hides its errors like secrets, collectors love it even more. Another variation of the 1991 D Liberty nickel believed to exist includes a rotated die error, where the reverse side is slightly rotated when compared to the obverse. While small rotations of 2 or 3 degrees are not extremely rare, the specimens from this year supposedly show rotations of up to 15 degrees in certain private collections. That kind of rotation immediately increases value because it shows a clear minting oversight. Then there is the mint mark mystery. Most 1991 D coins have a perfectly positioned D mint mark, but a select few show the D slightly northeast of its expected location, or even tilted as though struck at an angle. A few rare ones show what appears to be a repunched D, where the mint mark was punched twice, leaving a faint outline around the primary D. This repunching error is already desirable on Lincoln cents, but on nickel denominations it is far less common, making the 1991 D specimens incredible finds. Collectors also discuss a strange metal streaking effect visible on some coins. These streaks show up as thin lines running across the obverse or reverse, almost like light scratches but actually created during the rolling and annealing process. When metal is not mixed perfectly before striking, streaks appear, particularly on older pre-1982 cents, but on nickels it is rarer. That rarity adds to value because it identifies the coin as part of a flawed batch. Some coins also exhibit die chips around Jefferson's eye, nose, or hairline. A die chip is a small piece of the die that breaks off, leaving extra metal on the coin. These chips create raised blobs or bumps that become collectible if large or unusually placed. For the 1991 D5 cents, some examples show a die chip that forms what looks like a teardrop under the eye or a small cluster above the forehead.